Now, today I want to talk about adult children. I am not at this phase of my life. My oldest it will be 15 this year, so I'm getting close. And I believe that hopefully my children will not bring this kind of rebellion when they are adults. But I've seen this happen. We have friends throughout the church in many different areas of this country who have adult children who have chosen to rebel against God. This is one of the worst and most devastating things that can happen to any parent. We looked at the Gospel of Luke. Brock read for us Luke chapter 15, verse 11 through 24. The parable of the prodigal son. And Jesus teaches in this parable, it's a complete parable about rebellion. Rebellion and sanctification. Rebellion and restoration. What we have in this parable is a young man. This younger son, if you will, as his term is in the scriptures, we are going to assume, and I think rightly so, I think the scriptures would indicate that, we're going to assume that the younger son is an adult. This doesn't change parenting necessarily. Whether your child rebels as a minor or as an adult, there are certain things that you will find that parallel. We can handle it differently, but there are similarities. For example, my children don't have a choice. They're going to come to church with me. However, in order to be an effective parent, in order to do what the Apostle Paul referenced in our Bible study this morning in 2 Timothy chapter 1 about Timothy's grandmother and mother passing their faith on to him, and Paul's ancestors passing his faith on to him, we also need to pass our faith on to our children. And simply by making sure that their backsides are parked in the pew on Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night does not necessarily mean when they reach adulthood that they're just going to keep right on coming to church. It doesn't always work that way. In fact, I would say it right now, I would say somewhere in the church today, we are pretty doggone close to 70 to 75% fall away of our young people, and that's horrible. So what do we do? What is the answer for parents who have adult children who fall away from the faith? I want to paraphrase for just a moment, if you'll allow me that liberty. This younger son, in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 15, this younger son is looking at his father when he says, "Give me my share of the inheritance." If one of my children looked at me today and said, "Papa, give me my share of the inheritance, what I'm going to get when you're dead," I'll probably look at him and laugh and say nothing. But what this young man is doing is he is looking at his father and he's saying, "Dad, I wish you were dead. Then I could have what's mine." That's essentially what he's telling his father. And the younger one said to his father, "Father, give me the share of the property that is coming to me. I don't want to wait for you to die. I want to enjoy it now." What's the father do? Divides that property. When we have, again, we're talking about adult children, this may not be a good idea for small children. Although, if you read To Train Up a Child, I highly recommend the book, To Train Up a Child by Michael and Debbie Pearl. There are things in there, you have to read it with a grain of salt, but they're not members of the church, but they are religious people, and there are some differing points of view that I have with them. However, one of the things that they recommend doing is to set up, and this is something Kate and I did, this is something my brother did with his children, and it's very effective. They set up training sessions with children, not letting the child know that it's a training session. It's a test of obedience. For adult children. Notice this. The father doesn't try to stop his son from making a mistake. As parents, we want to stop our children from making mistakes. However, children learn and adults learn. They learn from mistakes. The fastest way to learn anything. You know how I first found out the stove in my mother's wood stove in the kitchen was hot? You touch it. You feel the heat. I think every one of my brothers and sisters got burned on that wood stove, but we only got burnt once. We learned from our mistakes. Now, we had been told it was hot. Mama would take our hands and hold them up and say hot. We could say hot almost as soon as we could say mama. But we didn't really truly learn the lesson until we got a blister. Might seem cruel, but maybe a blister's better than a scar. So the father does not try to stop his younger son. In fact, he divides with him his inheritance. He lets him go. He doesn't even go after him, pleading with him. I do believe that it's a good idea if your children are making decisions that you disapprove of, it would be good for them to realize that you don't agree with their decisions, that you don't agree with their life choices. However, allow me to say this. I think there are a lot of parents of adult children that don't allow them to exercise free will. Again, this is very easy for me to say because I don't have adult children yet.